A special treat today on Tasting Time. We've got the Hansen and the Gale from JJ Corrie. Culture Arash, you are very welcome back to the bar here today, where we've got a little bit of a treat in store for both for me and for those of you who love great Irish whiskey, a treat for you as well. So a little bit of background on why I'm doing two of these together in a tasting. David the neighbour, great guy. Although he is a big Scotch drinker, I'm slowly trying to convert them. We had a chat a number of months ago. He was off out for dinner up at a restaurant up Valley here in Napa, a restaurant called Bricks, which has a great Irish whiskey list. And I told him after dinner, give the JJ Corrie a try. He did. I got him hooked. And then he was out and about in the East Bay. He stopped into Cask, a great wine and liquor store, and he treated himself to a gift set of the JJ Corrie, Hansen and Gale. Came along with, the glasses right there, JJ Corrie engraved to a glass, so I got one of those and arrived home here one day to a little surprise on the doorstep. David had very kindly left the Gale and the glass for me to enjoy. Anyway, he came over for dinner last week. He brought the bottle of the Hansen with him. We tried both of them at the end of the dinner, and I thought, you know, I've got an opportunity to get two of these on one video, so that's what we're doing. Here we go. So a little bit of background on JJ Corrie. So part of the old Irish whiskey tradition known as bonding. So JJ Corrie was a bonder. Back in the day, there were bonders across the island of Ireland, and what they did essentially was they bought new make spirit from a distiller, and then they were responsible for aging that spirit in cask until it became whiskey. So in its modern iteration, JJ Corrie was started in 2015 by Louise McGuane. It's based near the village of Curraclare in County Clare. I've not yet met Louise. I do look forward to meeting her someday, and when I do, I would love to raise a glass to her and her team's great work with what they do in their bonded warehouse there at JJ Corrie. JJ Corrie himself was a grocer in the village of Kilrush, probably a town now in County Clare, and he essentially bought in this new make spirit, aged it to however he wanted it, and then sold it through his store. So let's jump into the whiskies. Enough of the talk about that. So the Hansen, named after, and it's great, all of these stories are laid out in detail on the back of the bottle here. So the Hansen is named after Andrew Hansen, who was we're going to pour it in here into our tasting glass. So Andrew Hansen was an excise man. Back in the day, these excise men would stop into distillers and bonders in their area. So it turns out that Hansen was the excise man for the county of Clare, and they would make sure that there was no shenanigans going on with stuff not being accounted for properly. So turns out apparently that Andrew Hansen and JJ Corrie got on very well, so much so that Andrew Hansen proposed to JJ's daughter Josie, and back in the day being the way, JJ Corrie accepted the offer to take her hand, and they got married. So no better way to be in with the excise people than to have an excise man in the family. So right, running the numbers on the Hansen. Weighs in at 46%, 92 proof for the 750ml bottle. Sells for about $50 a bottle when you can buy it. This one was bottled in 2020. It is a blend of 80% 10-year-old grain Irish whiskey, and then the remaining 20% is a 4-year-old grain Irish whiskey. A quick aside, from everything I've read about what they do at JJ Corrie, they are big on transparency in terms of where their liquid comes from. So great and easy to find out that information about their whiskey. So let us have a quick peek at it. Let's move that out of the way over there. So what strikes me about this whiskey is it's really light in colour. Almost transparent, just a real kind of sneaking smidge of yellow in there, but a really light colour. And then on the nose, doing my two glass thing again, just when I first tasted this when David came over, because as you can tell, when David bought the two bottles, he kept the Hansen for himself and he gave me the Gale, and obviously he likes the Hansen because you can see there's an awful lot more airspace in there than there is whiskey space. So, got to taste this for the first time last week, and just an incredibly attractive, delicate kind of lemon lime nose. It's kind of overlaid with hints of vanilla and caramel. And for me, this is a kind of a new oak smell. So back in the day when I did my time doing crush here in California, you have to stick your nose in barrels when they arrive at the winery. And this is what this reminds me of that smell. Just beautifully attractive on the nose. And there's almost for me a kind of a sweet hint of, I describe it as kind of when you bite into a nectarine, that taste of the flesh and the juice in a nectarine. And I have to say, I've never got that on an Irish whiskey in all the ones that I've tasted. So just a really appealing nose. On the palate, oh yeah. That kind of stone fruit character I talked about from the nectarine really comes to the fore. There's a peachy nectarine character up front. I find a lovely warm peppery spice that comes through, and it's all kind of rounded out by a soft creamy caramel. Just really, really attractive. So I really enjoy this. I think it's a really nice whiskey. So I'm gonna 3, 4, 5, just add in 5 drops just to see how it changes. So, yeah, on the nose, just straight away, the stone fruit, that nectarine character really kind of comes to the fore. It's really evident there. And that kind of oaky char type, wooden character is just a little bit less evident. So they've kind of flipped in terms of where they were on the flavor spectrum. They're just lovely, really attractive on the nose. And then on the palate, the stone fruit is just singing. It's really bright and vibrant. Goodness, so attractive. And then in the background, those spicy characters are fading a little bit. So just because this is something I would call a summer whiskey. It's just light, fresh, delicate, and really, really nice to drink. So that's the Hansen. Let's move on to the Gale. So the story behind the Gale is that on top of everything else that J.J. Corrie did, he apparently invented a bicycle back in the 1890s when he was bonding his whiskey. And this is named after the aforementioned bicycle. So, running the numbers on this one again, weighs in at 46% ABV, 92 proof, at 750ml bottle again. This is about $75 a bottle. The bottle I have that David very generously gave me was bottled on the 14th of April 2021. And is a blend, as are, I believe, the majority of what they produce at J.J. Corrie. It's a blend of 60% malt and 40% grain whiskey. Lots of other elements in that, which I will run below the screen here, and I will drop into the text below because it's an awful lot to remember. But yeah, wonderful there on the nose. So let's do the 2-glass thing. Let's have a quick look at the colour. A little bit of a deeper colour on this when you compare it with the Hansen. More kind of headed into the kind of like an almost kind of yellowy golden colour. And I'm going to guess that is coming from the malt element in this. So kind of on the nose is a lovely wooden kind of, barrel smoky char that's up front. And then I find a kind of a sweetness underneath there, kind of a toffee, fudgy type sweetness, and I pick up a hint of cinnamon on this one, which I really like. It's kind of that to me is on the sweets part of the spice spectrum. So very different to the Hansen, more of a kind of a a fuller, richer type nose. So on the palate. Goodness me. Spices. Just a big bag of spices up front. Clove, pepper, that cinnamon is there again. And then that's followed by a kind of almost a grated chocolate. like when you run some chocolate through a grater that you're going to put on the top of your tiramisu or on the top of your chocolate, or almost a cocoa powder that you'd sprinkle on top of your cappuccino or your latte. That's just following that spice, and then you run into that lovely chocolatey cocoa sweetness. Long finish, really long finish, long and balanced. So let's try this with a few drops. Okay, let's get 5 drops in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. So I'll give it a swirl. Right, on the nose. Let's see how she is on the nose. Okay, sweet vanilla comes right up front for me. The lighter chocolate, maybe almost fudgy character is there, and the spices seem to be kind of toned down a little when you nose it. Yeah, just lovely. So, right, try it again on the palate, see how it is. Those warm spices are still coming to the fore. Goodness, they are just, and it's integrated, it's all together. And the chocolate and cocoa is there. And I'm actually, now that I've added a few drops, I'm actually picking up a little bit of candied orange, if you can believe that. I'm not sure I can say I've had that as a tasting note recently, but yeah, just a wonderfully attractive. God, yeah, that's a gorgeous drop, as they both are. So, conclusions. Hats off to the team at JJ Corrie. Looking forward to trying more of the whiskies from here on my journey. Looking forward to meeting Louise and many of her team over the years. I love what they're doing. I love they've revived this the old traditional art and craft of Irish whiskey bonding. These two are fun. So let's give some conclusions. So the Hansen, obviously more delicate of the two. I would call it a kind of a summer sipper, and possibly the sort of whiskey you could have actually before you have a meal. It's just that light and fresh and really enjoyable character. So I'm going to give this one. It's a good to very good whiskey. I'm going to give it 3 3/4, 3.75 of my whiskey emojis. Really like this one, but in a different league, for those of us who like our whiskey with some depth and body and character, the Gale has that. Really like it. Last night we tried it over a big ice cube, and it just softened it a little, and it was just exquisite. It didn't last long. The theory over a big ice cube is you should drink it slowly, but it didn't really last long here last night. I'm giving this one 4 1/4 emojis, so 4.25 of my whiskey emojis. I really like it. I'm going to guess that the Gale here is probably going to catch up with the Hansen in terms of where it is on the consumption front. I will be loaning this bottle to David so that he can enjoy its pleasures for a week or two. That's it. 2 great whiskies, very different. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. We will say Slán Siúa. See you next time. Thank you. Goodness me. Yeah, that's a keeper.